Good evening, everyone. This is the Board of Selectmen meeting for Monday, January 11, 2016. We'll call the meeting to order. And please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Weekly briefing. Chief Clark, you ready? Norm, you got an announcement?
I had to round them up.
Okay, get him in here. Get him in here. Who's that guy in the back? It looks very relaxed back there. I don't know.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Chief.
A couple of things tonight. I'm happy to make a couple of announcements. One is got a little pain with it for all of us, but I want to, Mike, come on up. Mike Mason, Lieutenant Mason, is retired from us now after 30 years of dedicated service to Harwich Fire Department, and I can't say enough about what Mike has done for the department, and just been a true leader, a really great guy. He also was one of the originators, team leaders of was once the Mid-Cape Dive Team, and then helped formed with other departments and chiefs, the Cape Cod, Barnstable County Technical Rescue Team, the dive arm of that. And he was instrumental with that. And he's been instrumental with many programs at the fire department. And I'm really happy for Mike and his kids and his wife Pam, but he is going to be missed. So I just, officially wanted to say goodbye to Mike and let the board know what a great lieutenant and asset to the town of Harwich, and he'll be missed by all of us.
Well, Mike, there's one who remembers you when you weren't the lieutenant, and you were a very bad softball player, if I remember, at one point in time.
I think you came in as sub for me.
I know, that's right. Yeah, it was really bad, and I was worse, so it's no problem at all. But you've been a stand-up guy in the community, and we appreciate everything that you have done. And I know as a firefighter, and I say that broadly, public safety in general, that it's a big sacrifice for not only you and your family to fulfill that role. And on our behalf, I'd like to thank you and your family for all that service, and we wish you nothing but the best in retirement.
Thank you.
Hopefully you're going to do something really nice. Have some fun. Okay. Thank you. So, Chief, hopefully the good news is, after that, is that usually when one person leaves, there's a vacancy that has to be filled, right?
Mr. Chairman, it's that whole succession plan that
the way we like it.
We follow through. So with that, through a rigorous testing process, we have promoted Justine Wallors to fill Mike's spot as fire lieutenant. So I'd like to introduce to you Lieutenant Wallors. We made it official last Friday. Justine's been with us 15 years, almost 16 years now, and she's got a history in the fire service that goes back about 20 years. But we hire the best of the best, and we promote the best of the best, Mr. Chairman, and that's what we did on this promotion with Justine. So I'd like to have her come up and introduce to you our newest lieutenant, Justine Wallors.
Justine, I won't say welcome aboard, but thank you for all your service to the town, and congratulations.
Thank you. I got some big shoes to fill, so.
I know. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's always a delight to see promotion from within. I think that's really good. It speaks well for how I'll say we groom people and how we manage things, and encourage people to keep working up the ladder, if you will, so to speak. So thank you very much. Anybody else on weekly briefing? Mary.
Good evening, Mary Ward, trustee at the library. This is a 1-minute update.
Did I just get you to bend that mic down?
Know.
Just, yeah.
I forget to do that.
That's great. Thank you.
Last week we had a discussion about the library preservation project, and I just wanted to say that although the CPC had voted against our project, we're very interested in continuing communication with CPC. And with that in mind, some of the trustees will be attending their scheduled meeting this Thursday, and with the hope of having a few minutes to clarify any misunderstanding regarding our efforts to include or collaborate with the Historic Commission, and perhaps, and also to give some updated information from the architectural firm about all the things we've just been talking about, perhaps parsing the project out in phases, updates on costs and estimates and so forth. In general, the board wants the dialogue to continue among all the parties that might be helpful to identifying funding for the project. So, so Thursday we'll update CPC if they have time and will allow us to have a few minutes, and we'll hope whatever we present to them will prove valuable as we move forward.
Okay, let me just ask you a question or two. Have you contacted someone at CPC to get on their agenda, or are you just going to
We're not specifically on their agenda.
Oh, you are? Okay, good.
No, we're not
Well, you're not.
specifically on their agenda. Their agenda, generally under new business, shows a general wrap-up of a discussion of the warrant articles and anything that's outstanding for CPC to discuss or vote
Okay.
on. So once they call the meeting to order, there seems to be an opportunity, if they allow the time, for a few minutes of just general discussion for informational purposes.
Okay, so two things. One, I want to point out that, you know, CPC funds are taxpayer dollars. I mean, you know,
Right.
even though a small portion of it comes from the state, that's still taxpayer dollars. So whether that project is funded through taxpayer dollars one way or the other, personally, I'd rather see it done through CPC, because those monies are already allocated, are already taxed, and that money's available, as opposed to raising new money, new taxes, to go do something that we already had the money to do. So, I mean, I think there's a logic there that says that. I think that you need to encourage them on your article in particular, since I believe they voted it once already, I
They have.
believe, to ask them to reconsider it, is the word you want to use, I think. And if someone would reconsider that vote, then maybe you have a chance of getting something in there that maybe, you know, even if we looked at a phased-in approach that said we do so much this year and so much next year, and we all learn as the project goes forward, I think that would be a good thing.
Okay, we'll take that
So
advice.
I encourage your efforts.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for keeping us up to date. Anybody else? Lou?
It's been a long time since I've done this.
I don't know, you
Stood,
mean
that is.
standing, or you mean something else?
At the mic.
Okay.
Now, I just wanted to say something on behalf of the library, that a solution does need to be found. The library does need to be painted. The CPC hopefully will reconsider, and I'd be willing to do anything I can to help in terms of that effort. Anything but painting it myself. That's as far as I'll go. I would ask that.
We appreciate that, by the
Thank
way.
you. I think I would ask the trustees to keep in mind that there's a Department of Labor, Department of Interior regulates historic structures, and some of the issues might revolve around that. And so that discussion should be held with historic as quickly as possible to hopefully move things along. So we support it. I believe everybody in the community supports it. We want to see it get done.
Yeah, okay. And once we know about all that, we'll put it on the agenda, have a nice discussion about it.
I want to say thank you for
Jenny.
your support. However, we don't need a reminder about following the Department of Labor standards for historic preservation. That is the whole purpose of this assessment. Why CPC paid $25,000 for this, to have people that specialize in this work that do that. Certainly, anything they recommend goes along with those guidelines. Any suggestion that we might deviate from it locally and save costs by not doing things according to those standards would have to go through the historic district. We are following that. It's not news to us, and we're hoping that those funds exist for historic preservation, so they may allocate some for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else on weekly briefing? Any public comments or announcements? Move on to the consent agenda, Janelle. And by the way, before we do that, I remind everybody there is a football game at 8:30. Somebody might be interested, I don't know.
Fast. Go Clemson.
Janelle.
All right. Mr. Chair, I move that we accept the minutes for 1 December 14th, 2015 regular session, and 2 December 21st, 2015 regular session. Accept the resignation of Barry Worth from the Utility and Energy Conservation Commission. Approve the recommendation of the Interview Nominations Subcommittee to appoint Darren Glidden to the Utility and Energy Conservation Commission, subject to submitting a disclosure with the town clerk. Approve the recommendation of the Interview Nominations Subcommittee and the Conservation Commission to appoint member Robert Sarantis as representative on the Trails Committee. Amend the Personnel Bylaw Classification Plan to include the Animal Control Officer at grade M2 and approve revised job description for same. Approve 2016 common vitular application for Dunkin' Donuts at 175 Route 137 in East Harwich and 481 Route 28 in Harwichport. And G, approve annual renewal application by Reflections Auto Restoration for Auto Class 4 Auto Repairman License.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion?
Mr.
Michael?
Chair, Mr. Chair, I asked that Chris just give us an explanation on E.
E is the personnel bylaw classification having to do with the animal control officer.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mike, as well, to give an opportunity. Actually, former Chief Mason had approached me during some negotiations, and he didn't think it was appropriate, and I agreed with this, that the animal control officer, who in this case is a uniformed police officer, was included in the HEA union. So he asked to have that position be removed from that union. We did negotiate with HEA, it was brought to the board, and in that agreement, we said that if it was a uniformed animal control officer, that we would take it out of the HEA and put it into a more appropriate union. And we also further said that if we were to ever hire an animal control officer in the future that wasn't a police officer, then that position could stay within the HEA. So we actually took that action, and that was presented to the board and was voted. We then approached some of the other police unions to see if they would take the animal control officer. And they had some concerns about that. I think from their perspective, the animal control officer was more of an auxiliary officer and not necessarily a full police officer. So the union did not want that officer's position included in their union. So now we ran into a situation where I want to give the chief the management capability to be able to manage an employee. So we had a discussion, and obviously Jack is the incumbent. We talked a little bit with Jack, and he was comfortable with whatever we did. So we thought it made more sense to create a position in the non-union salary scale and slot him into that. I think it's a couple dollars or a couple cents more an hour that we, in order to kind of slot him, so he's making a few dollars more in total, but not a heck of a lot. So we created and looked at the salary scale for non-union, and we placed him in that for a uniformed officer. So it's been a long journey. I mean, just the fact that Bill Mason started this, and Bill's now been retired for a period of time, so it's taken us a while to get there. But I think this is the right decision to put him in this spot and to make sure that he can work cooperatively and for the chief and deputy chief.
I think I see the chief nodding his head out there, so I assume you folks are, I see the deputy nodding his head as well, so I assume that means you're in agreement. Okay. Any other questions or discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, we'll put the consent agenda to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? To vote. Thank you. We had no public hearings and no old business this evening. New business. We have confirmation of the appointment of Donna Molino as assessing director. Where's Donna? She's hiding back there. Oh my goodness! My
Second
goodness.
row.
Okay, so look, this is you know, we just did a promotion within the fire service, if you will. I think we're also mourning the loss of Dave Scannell. But again, here is a case where Dave, one of our managers, did a great job in the folks that are working for him. And I think in this case, we've got some good news. Fortunately, you passed muster on the, on the interviews and the recommendations and whatnot. And I see Mr. Waystack up here, the chairman of the Board of Assessors, is chomping at the bit, and he's proud as a peacock up there, I can tell. So with that, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, members of the board, Mr. Clark, Charlene. I wanted to let the board be aware that the Board of Assessors voted unanimously you know, to recommend Donna for this position. And I've worked with Donna now 12 years in the department. She's excellent at what she does. You know, she has great counter service, so to speak, in dealing with the taxpayers and the residents of this community. And many times, the residents who come into Town Hall, the first open window they encounter is that of the Board of Assessors.
Especially if they come in at 7:30 in the morning. by the way.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for the note, Mr. Chairman, that the members of the assessing department are there first thing in the morning.
Near as I can tell.
But Don has done a great job, and, you know, I want to thank Ms. Greenall and Mr. Clark, as well as the finance department, for the interview process that they put Donna through. You know, there was a question that was asked, in how are you going to fill Dave's shoes? And Donna answered it very, very well, saying that she can't fill Dave's shoes, but she will do a great job and make this town proud of the work that she does. She's embraced technology, which this department has embraced the last few years, and she's been behind that. Dave was wonderful. No one can replace Dave. He was the dean of Cape Cod assessors, but he was also old school in many ways. He didn't like the computers too much. He always had his yellow pad that he wrote everything down on. And Donna will take this department into a new era for assessing, and she has and will continue to embrace technology for the department. She'll work well with the staff that is in place, and you are absolutely correct. I am proud as a Peacock to see this before the board tonight, and I heartily recommend that you confirm her this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Someone have a motion I'd like to make?
Sure.
Angela?
I'll do it.
Angela's gonna do it.
I move that we confirm the appointment of Don Molino as the assessing director.
Second.
Moved and seconded to confirm the appointment. Donna Molino as our assessing director. Any discussion? Other than me saying that, well-deserved, again, it's, you know, it's one of those things that it's terrific to see someone come up through the so-called ranks. And I think it's a very good, excellent appointment. And no further discussion. I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations, you're appointed. Or should I say you're confirmed? I don't know. I guess that's what it actually says in here. So,
what it says.
congratulations, Donna. So now my tax rate should go down. So, or at least my
The
assessment.
fun begins.
Final abatement first.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Good night. We're really not to clear out a room.
This is fun.
Remember, I said the game doesn't start till 8:30. It's only. Okay. Town administrator's report.
I promise no filibusters. No filibusters by me.
Okay.
I do have a couple things that I just wanted to go over. One, fairly lengthy, but I just wanted to touch upon a couple of highlights in terms of I put together a annual report. You know, one thing that really kind of struck me this year, going through calendar 15, was that there was so many changes in personnel. You know, really, there was 12 leadership positions that changed throughout the year, including really the departure. I didn't even include Donna, because officially that's going to be in 16. But, you know, to have that in which during the course of this year, and obviously at the beginning of this, we've had an entire turnover in the financial team of the town. And to me, that's kind of amazing to kind of work our way through that. And I just wanted to, and I'm not going to read off all the names, but just to let people know, I did put it in the material just to show that there was a lot of activity and 12 leadership positions, and that doesn't include the day-to-day transition that occurs throughout the organization. So there was a lot of change and a lot of, I think, positive change. And you know, one of the things I think about is in the police department, where we created the deputy chief position, hired a new police chief, the 2 lieutenants were both brand new. And to go through, and I had the deputy chief in, and we were chatting, and I said, you know, now that the dust is settled, how are things going? And, you know, to hear very positive comments back that things are going real well, Chris. So I think that as it's been a turbulent year in some ways with so much change, it's been very positive in the final result. Just a couple other highlights. We have 8 collective bargaining units. Very proud in 2015 that we brought all 8 collective bargaining units up to date. I wasn't satisfied that I think we had one of them where we had all 8 in place for only about 2 weeks. So we're working on getting the other contracts to extend those. We have 5 of the 8 done. There are 2 of them that we have a tentative agreement, so we're just committing that agreement to writing. So we have that element underway, and there's one union that I don't think there'll be an issue, but it's just a little bit more work. They have made a few more requests, so we're working on that. The FY16 municipal budget, you know, one of the things I kind of really think about are some of the key responsibilities for me is to make sure that we get the budget balanced and submitted, but also to make sure town meeting runs fairly smoothly. You know, did the warrant flow? Were there a lot of issues? And, you know, I like to think that the annual town meeting this past year went pretty smoothly. And at one point, you know, I know some of the board members were there, but, you know, to have myself and Diane Shaughnessy go through those budget hearings, it was literally just kind of the 2 of us. And then Diane left, and then Andy came on board. So I think for a week, you know, I was the only show in town to try to make sure that we got the budget squared away, as well as the town meeting warrant. So that change in personnel, it was a really trying year, and I think, you know, things went pretty smoothly, which is really what I think is primarily my job, is to make sure we get the budget done and make sure the town meeting, at least from an organizational standpoint, it can't be held responsible for the debates and the demeanor sometimes in which those debates occur. Also, let me see here, just in terms of a couple of larger projects. I was involved in the well 10 treatment plant down in, I guess that's North Harwich officially, North Harwich, to put that online. So that was when I was serving as the interim water superintendent. So that was interesting to play a role in that. The Muddy Creek project, which I have some material on that. You know, that project went from, I think, a $2 million project to a $6 million project. And what I had learned when I first started was that Jim Merriam was kind of a key person in that effort, and then Bob Lawton had done some work on it. So I just took that as one of the ones that I've attended almost all the meetings and helped to have that project. And that project is moving. Hopefully that will be done on time and on budget for this coming May. But to have a $6 million project and go through the entire project as kind of one of the projects that, you know, I try to participate in, I think is, you know, it's just nice to see that sense of accomplishment. The Downey property, I think it's always nice for me when I hear the years and years that go into something, and it's so great that the board and the town was able to acquire that property. And then my little part to it was just making sure that we got rid of the dilapidated buildings and made that look nice. I mean, nothing worse than driving by an
By the way,
eyesore.
those barrels are gone now.
The barrel's gone?
Yeah, I checked on it.
So I know we had talked about that, and
Yeah,
they were
yeah.
on top of it. Also this year, I volunteered to go on to Cape Cod Municipal Health Group to learn a lot about and continue to hopefully provide some expertise in that area. I'm very, very happy that the federal government has delayed the implementation of the Cadillac tax, so that will take some of the pressure off of significant changes that may be needed as a result of that. Also, I've dedicated a fair amount of time and will continue to dedicate a fair amount of time on Cape Cod Technical High School on the building committee to help them work their way through. I was on a building committee probably 4 or 5 years ago at this point. In the last communities had a sense. I've never done a tech school, so it's a little bit of an interest to do a tech school. But hopefully I can contribute positively in that. The other area, just Department of Public Works, I just wanted to kind of acknowledge that, you know, one of the things I did this year, I got out a little bit more and saw some of the work they did on the transfer station. And, you know, it's nice to see that you have employees that work hard and care deeply about the town. And they did some of those projects that were able to be brought in for lesser amounts and under budget because of some of their efforts to make that work. Obviously, there were some challenging things. The First Congregation Church, I think I've learned more about cemeteries in the past year than I've had in my 25 years of doing this. So there's been certainly a lot of issues, and hopefully we will continue to work through that to reach a positive conclusion for the town. And then on the wastewater issue, that has been probably a pretty difficult issue to deal with. There's been a lot of different activity on it, and hopefully we continue to make some progress in that area. And then just, I started this kind of not thinking I would continue it, but it's been interesting in terms of just personally. I initially moved down here, I was by myself, and then my family finally joined me. And I now feel like we've had kind of a year under our belt of being Cape residents. A little bit of a strange year that I have 3 children, and my second of the my oldest is off to college, he's now a junior. And my older daughter is just starting her freshman year. So it's kind of weird being a dad and having kind of some of the kids start to leave the house. So it's a different transition for me, just from that sense.
Don't worry, they'll be
They
back.
come back.
Yeah,
They'll
they
be
come back. They come back, yeah. They do that.
So just to kind of comment, obviously, that's just a little bit of a synopsis of.
So let me just go back for a second and set the stage, because what Chris is alluding to here is every year we put together a town report. I think everybody's seen the bound version. Anybody who's new to town in particular asks me about something about town government, I just say, here, have you read this yet? You know, because it's amazing how much stuff goes on in the town, how many boards and committees there are in this town, how many volunteers, you know, make this whole thing work, and the number of bodies we have, you know, personnel we have, and the details of the finances and whatnot. All the motions and activities of the town meeting are in there. It's a great document, great reference document. But every board and committee has to submit a report. The town administrator has to submit a report, and Chris has written his. The Board of Selectmen has to issue a report, a draft of which I've circulated to this team. So it all goes into the report. And so Chris was just sharing with us, and just to set the stage, the highlights of what's in the document he wrote for his report. So thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Okay.
And then I'll just do 3 other items here. The budget warrant timeline. I appreciate, Mr. Chairman, I had a couple opportunities I saw Bob Sanborn from Cape Cod Tech, and he was in the process of lining up. They're gonna do a budget presentation for I think the managers and chairman of the Board of Selectmen for January 25th to kind of present their budget. And in my conversation with him, I said, well, why don't you come down for the February 1st meeting to do their budget presentation to the board. So Peter okayed that. And then also later that week, I had a meeting with Scott Carpenter over at Monomoy. So I thought that why not do kind of an education night when we scheduled that meeting for February 27th of Saturday session. We did everything except for education. So this gives us an opportunity now to have that presentation. Also, it's nice for me that the budget will be finalized, the budget message will be finalized for February 8th. So I should have good, reasonably good numbers at this stage. I think the February 8th number does work too, because we have MMA is coming up in a week and a half, and usually at MMA is Mass Municipal Association, not mixed martial arts, as I found out sometimes when talking to people.
Could be.
But usually at that, last year with the new governor, they let the new governor have until March to present his budget message, but he will present his budget and the impact of that budget to municipalities. Traditionally, it's been done at the MMA meeting. So that will be in a couple weeks. In terms of some other highlights, as I've already alluded to, Monday, February 8th would be the town administrator budget presentation to the selectmen and to the finance committee. And then Friday, February 12th is the article deadline. So the warrant closes noon. So obviously on the Monday, February 8th, the last official selectmen's meeting before the annual warrant closes. We have, and I think we did pass out at the last meeting, kind of what we've received so far, so we do have a sense. I know there's a few other ones that we will have to put in, but just for people kind of planning purposes, that people are aware. And then Monday, February 22nd, the articles need to be submitted to the Finance Committee. This is all determined by bylaws. And then also on Monday, the selectmen required to submit the final budget to the Finance Committee. So that 2 weeks in February is kind of a a busy time for the board in terms of putting things together. We have been dedicating, I spent a fair amount of time last week with the finance director going over some of the finances, and today we spent a fair portion of the day kind of working on that. So we're going through the budget, we're vetting through to see what everyone has submitted in the lineup of having a budget that will continue to provide, I think, a very high level and a good quality level of services to the residents of Harwich. And in some limited cases, I think that we do need to try to expand that budget to meet some of the needs, especially with facilities, to try to do a better job at facility maintenance. I think we do an excellent job now, but we just don't have a lot of resources to put towards that. So there will be a few things that are in there. I don't even have anything in terms of initial tidbits. We're still kind of working our way through the numbers to see where we are, but as I get a little closer, certainly we can share that. On the Muddy Creek update, we did include, hopefully in the package, the material that we did get the $300,000 NOAA grant, so we have a additional grant allocation that's been awarded for us. Just to put that project, the Muddy Creek project, from a financial standpoint in perspective, its total revenue that we have is $6.4 million. $4.6 million is now coming from grants. So more than 2/3 of this project is being funded by outside grants, and on the town contribution, about 1.8 has been appropriated. And a lot of these appropriations, which I think speaks very highly of the project, is 50-50 matches. So Chatham and Harwich have contributed equally on a lot of these. And then on the use of the funds, you know, sometimes I think people think of government as a lot of overhead, but actually $5 million, so the lion's share of the money, is going directly into the construction of the bridge. So the money is going right there. That's really the lion's share of the dollars. There was a fair amount of expense for design and permitting, almost $700,000. The permitting, because we went through some of the different changes at the state level on their Smart Streets or Green Streets initiative, and then the new FEMA maps, kind of played havoc a little bit with this project, but we have been able to work our way through that and get that. And then temporary relocations of the utilities, almost $250,000. So fairly good-sized project. Obviously, I think it is moving along, and I think we have a good project team and we have a good contractor to do the work. So I'm very optimistic. But just to give people a sense for budgetary, that some folks, and a lot of folks, you know, even private people, were ones that were behind the effort to obtain some of those federal grants, as well as just our partners at the federal government and the state government, just have been outstanding.
Chris, have you had any comments or conversations with people about the closing of the bridge?
You know, that's a good question. The bridge closed officially last Monday. We happened to have a meeting with the deputy chief, police chief, and he said we haven't, no complaints into there. We haven't received any complaints from the office. So I think that plan, the detour plan that was implemented, has been working. I know one area, Church Street, is one that I kind of drive by as it comes out into that Five Corners. Is that the kind of the
At Queen Anne Road.
At Queen Anne Road and 137. And, you know, I've been kind of paying attention to the queue up, and I think the most I've seen is like 6 cars. So I think it's been manageable, and I think as the season goes on, we're getting into the dead of winter, that I think that's going pretty well. But I do drive by that way just about every day, so I do monitor that, to, you know, at least unofficially on my own, and certainly will continue to work with the police department. Just on the collaboration, it's interesting, the two police departments worked out a little agreement. So some days you'll see Chatham officers down there, and other days you'll see Harwich officers. So they switch back and forth in terms of who's covering the, they don't.
They never mix them?
No, they don't mix
Chatham,
them.
one Harwich, right? No?
No.
Okay.
They pick days. But I think it was nice that, you know, there was some concern about how's that gonna work, and they had already worked it out on their own. So I think it just speaks.
It's a joint project between the two towns, jointly funded, et cetera, so the police should work jointly, right? Mainly makes sense.
Okay. And then, just the last thing, you had asked for some information, Mr. Chairman, I think it was you at the last
Yep.
meeting about the pitch pines. So we did provide a couple things. One is, I guess the trees are officially not within the right-of-way, so I think I did misspeak and thought that Lynn Cooper had some say in this, but it's actually directly on school property. And the reason that they put in their letter for removing it was strictly aesthetics. So I think we've provided this information to Mr. Carpenter, and, you know, it's really within the domain of the Monomoy school system, and we'll see what they do with it.
Was there I think when this whole discussion about when the school was being built or proposed to be being built, and, you know, how we're gonna carve out the land for the Little League field and whatnot, do we actually have a plot plan that shows those trees, or, you know, where the lines are? I just don't remember seeing it, that's all.
Well, this is the aerial. I think maybe what you're referring to, Mr. Chairman, is on the middle school, there was some discussion about
Nope,
where that.
no.
This was on this?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
This was before my time.
Yeah, there was a big discussion, because that Little League field's been there for a long time.
Yes.
The concern was that, you know, something was gonna happen to it because of the,
Could the
high
schools
school
encroach
construction and
upon?
whatnot.
Yeah.
And so that specifically was worked over and carved out, so.
Okay.
Someone somewhere must have a plot plan from that actually shows this area.
Mhm.
I mean, you can flip it to the schools, and if they say, no problem, tear them down, we don't have a problem taking them out, so, you know, I think the intent is there to get rid of them. It's just a matter of whose toes we're gonna step on, I guess. Right? I guess my
Yeah.
bottom line is I give the school the courtesy of saying, no, they don't care. But I do think if you look at this, and it was before your time, there was a lot of discussion in this area about how that road was gonna go in there, and what the parking was gonna be in the back and all that. I'm sure there's some documentation that
Was
shows.
that part of the actual agreement? Because I know in the agreement, the Monomoy
Might
agreement, they
be.
did have the middle school, they had verbiage about how that was
Yeah,
gonna be
might-
handled.
Might be.
Might
I
be,
don't remember
or,
reading it for this.
yeah, it might be,
Okay.
yeah.
We'll make sure that we pass that along to,
Anyhow, the good news is there's no Little League until probably March or April, right? So we got a little bit of time to work this out, but
Yes.
the intent is to get them removed.
Peter,
They have a free tree guy that wants to do it for
Yeah,
them, so.
sure, I don't blame them.
Peter, you mentioned parking. They don't plan to put additional parking there, do they?
No, I was talking about the school
Oh,
parking
okay,
that
I'm
was,
sorry. Misheard you.
yeah.
and that concludes my report this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Selectmen's reports. Janelle, do you have anything for us?
I don't.
Michael?
Nope.
Nope.
Angelo? Wow.
Wow.
Okay, 7:08, we're going home.
Happy
Meeting is
football.
adjourned. See you all next week.